Good evening, one and all. We are a little bit late to the match build-up show this week. We usually do a Wednesday evening, but other things got in the way. But we are making a match preview on Thursday this week. So do say hello if you're there in the comments. I can see a few of you already joining us, some of our regulars. Rob, hello, good evening. Hello, Reese, once again. And hello to Mark. Glad to have you with us on this Thursday evening. We're missing EastEnders, but we're looking forward to the weekend.
Oh no!
On the other side of the screen, this week's guest is the irreverent, very sweary blog, League One -10. Glen, how are you, mate?
I'm all right. We've leaving it to Thursday meant we had an extra day to get over the Burnley game. So yeah, all good. Not in too bad a mood. Really looking forward to talking about it again.
Well, we must touch upon it. So it's going to be a bit of a sandwich, really. It's going to be a bit of a miserable start, but hopefully we can have some positivity to talk about. And also, I guess, kind of bridging the gap on Total Saints podcast absence this week, whilst Ben has been away on holiday and you haven't had a platform or a channel to vent your frustrations this week.
Well, I've had my blog. I've done that. But yeah, it's interesting that you asked me to do it when there was no podcast last week. I think we'll probably touch on it this week, but we tend to only focus on the game that we've just had rather than go back to a previous one, especially if we've lost a mid-abysmal. So nice to be here, and nice to see the other people watching as well.
Yeah, right. So I guess we better reopen these wounds from last weekend. Try and brush it under the carpet as quickly as possible. So, Saints won, Burnley 2 last weekend. A couple of changes, in fact. Let's start with the lineups. Vestergaard in for Bednarek. Apparently, seemingly to counteract some long balls and some height, but he showed little of that afternoon.
Well, I could have understood it a little bit if the official reason was because Burnley are going to be showering long balls on top of us all game. But Ralph came out with something really weird about him being better on the ball and being more effective in the red zone. Now, I don't know what the red zone is, and I don't care. It's whatever Vestergaard allegedly added in those areas, he didn't add enough to counteract the fact that our defending was worse. We always have to defend slightly deeper when he plays because you can't leave the big gap behind because he can't turn and he can't run. And it wasn't solely his fault. Obviously, the whole team was pretty dreadful, but it doesn't help. Like the second half of the cup game against Spurs when he was on the pitch, it just doesn't help, bearing in mind how we want to play, which is an aggressive sort of pressing strategy. So it was a bit of a surprise, and I tried to find the positives in it when I initially saw it, but after about 10 minutes I thought, no, there really isn't any. I don't really understand it, especially in a home game. Maybe in an away game where you're defending where you might want to defend a little bit deeper, but not in a home game. And especially when Chris Wood went off, that was the aerial threat. And when Chris Wood went off and they brought Vydra on, you had two relatively quick players who, if they got in and around Vestergaard, were always going to win. So yeah, I know that wasn't a lot to do with Vydra's winning goal, but it didn't work.
Well, Joe's already stuck the knife in this evening. Vestergaard isn't good on the ball, though. I mean, is that the reason? If that's the reason, then perhaps Ralph is deluded. Wow, big words, Joe.
Yeah, I think with Vestergaard, when he's actually got the ball at his feet and he's got it under control and he can see, he is capable of picking out a fairly decent pass forward. He tends to play some quite good balls into the feet of the players in front of him. And I guess that's what Ralph's getting at. He probably is slightly calmer on the ball than Bednarek, but it doesn't balance out. It just doesn't. Bednarek's a better all-round defender. Vestergaard is very, very limited in that regard. So I wouldn't say Ralph's deluded, but I would say he was slightly misguided with what he did with that team selection.
Well, we learned very little from the very first day. It was tough conditions, wind, rain, Storm Dennis in St
Yeah,
Mary's,
yeah.
and Vestergaard struggled again on Saturday. But also Buffal replaced Redmond, who is apparently going to be out for at least a month. I've just seen a tweet actually from Adam Blackmore. He says it's a very similar injury to Musa Gineppo, a muscle injury with lots of blood around the tissue, which makes it difficult for Redmond to run and actually put pressure on.
Yeah, it's a shame because he just, in the last sort of like 6 weeks or so, he just started playing really well again, getting back to the levels that he showed last season. So it's a shame that he's missed out. But I actually thought Buffal did quite well we missed him when he went off because Gineppo had a bit of a shocker. He didn't seem to want to take any players on or add that that bit of thrust, which is what Redmond, Gineppo, and Buffal are in the team to do. He just didn't seem to do it. So Buffal getting injured as well. It's kind of a double whammy, and Gineppo, you would assume, has got to step up big time this weekend because he's the last winger standing. So he's very, very likely to be starting the game.
Yeah, both of them very much live wires, wild cards, if you like. And Buffal,
Yeah.
I noticed actually he drifted across the pitch quite often. I don't think he knew where he was actually meant to be playing. I think I saw him a half dozen times occupying the same space as Stuart Armstrong, who was meant to be on the opposite wing.
Yeah, well, they did. I think they deliberately sort of like swapped over a couple of times.
Maybe,
I like
maybe the
Buffal,
message wasn't passed over. He just went over to the
maybe
side.
not. Maybe they both ended up on the same side by accident. What are you doing here? But I like Buffal and I really, really want him to do well. But it just seems like any time he gets a run in the side, something goes wrong, like he gets a little injury or he kicks his table or something daft like that. You just wonder if it's ever really going to happen for him. And I think he's only got 1 year left on his contract, hasn't he? So this is just another one. But apparently he's not out for very long. So it sounds like there's a decent chance he might be back for next week anyway.
Yeah, it would suggest that Gineppo would be like for like in the lineup on Saturday against Aston Villa. Right, let's get on to our right backs then. Full backs, Abdub adds, do we need to buy a full back in the summer? Now, Cedric's gone away to Arsenal. Kyle Walker-Peters, just touching him briefly. He made his debut at the weekend. 70 odd minutes. I think it's quite harsh for many people sort of writing him off already.
Yeah,
he's not even
ridiculous.
had 90 minutes. But he did look a midget sort of next to Burnley's 7-foot giant.
Yeah, well, they did target him as well, as they were always going to do, because, I mean, I don't know how tall he is, doesn't look much taller than 5'7", 5'6", 5'7".
I think he's even shorter than Cedric.
Yeah. Fullbacks are ultimately judged on what they do defensively and what they do when they get in a position to cross the ball. Walker-Peters looked like quite a tidy footballer. There was some nice footwork to sort of manoeuvre positions to knock the ball off and all that sort of stuff. But he, the couple of times he got into crossing positions, he overhit it by miles. And defensively, I thought he was okay without being outstanding. He certainly he didn't look any better on that showing than Jan Valery is, for example. The only, obviously, I hope he does well and he can cover both sides if we get an injury to Bertrand. Obviously, he's injured himself at the moment, but the whole deal is a strange one because that Daniel Levy is just using us to put the price up so we can sell him in the summer, and he'll probably be looking to sell that for more than we can pay. So if he does turn out to be really good, then we're just sort of like fattening him up to be sold by Daniel Levy. So it's a bit of a strange one. So I'm not going to get too excited or downhearted about him. Whatever he does, you just hope he does a job and doesn't do anything horrific whilst he's on the pitch. But he's got to stay fit, obviously.
Yeah, well, Rob has added he's out for Villa. There's your comment again. Yeah. And some compliments actually paid to Kyle Walker-Peters in the comments here. Mark's added he's had some nice touches, but not sure he's strong enough in attack. And I think a lot to learn whilst he's here at Southampton. And Ollie adds he's pretty quick with pretty quick feet on the ball, which is helpful as well. Right, let's get to the goals.
I was surprised at how old he is. He's 20. Is he 22 or 23?
22, I believe.
22. I kind of thought he was 19. I didn't realise he was 22, and you have to wonder a little bit. Just the fact that he is 22 and he has only played about 15 games, I think. But then, obviously Spurs are a decent side, and he's had some good players in front of him, so it's not too surprising he hasn't played much. But I don't think, as with any player who joins us, we don't have finished article players. If we do, then they get sold to Liverpool as quick as you like. So, no player who joins us, especially on loan in January, is going to be brilliant, and it'd be wrong to expect them to be.
Right, let's get to the highlights then of the actual game. I think we've postponed it as much as we can for the most part of the episode so far already. But first minute in, then from a corner, what happened here? This is did Ings leave it deliberately? Did he get a call from McCarthy, who's 2 yards behind the bloody line as the ball goes across, or is it some sort of Sunday League shout?
I think it's 80% Danny Ings' fault and 20% McCarthy's. Now, Danny Ings, as the defender on the near post, anyone who's ever played football knows if that's your position and you can clear the ball, you clear it. You just whack it anywhere. Even if you whack it off for another corner or a throw in, you don't let it get past you if you possibly can. And Danny Ings, for whatever reason, seemed to think it was curling out. But then McCarthy, as a goalkeeper, he's got to be kind of expecting Ings to miss it and be in a position to save it if he does miss it. And why he was stood in the goal is anyone's guess, but it did. I've only really watched it back once, but it did look like he kind of got himself in a funny position at the back post behind a couple of Burnley players. So I don't think McCarthy covered himself in glory with that goal at all. But the situation wouldn't have arisen if Danny Ings had done the job that he's supposed to do at that front post, which is just whack the ball away. But we can't criticise the king of the scummers too much.
Yeah. I mean, perhaps we can criticise the conditions. Do you think it helped the whip and the direction into the goal?
Well, it was a crap corner, wasn't it? He didn't hit it properly. It was only about 4 foot off the ground. So it's kind of the luckiest goal ever from the point of view of, was it Westwood who took it?
Westwood. We don't like the name Westwood.
We don't like the W word, no. It's a miss it. It's a lucky goal. But the whole weather and the wind and all that. I mean, if Sean Dyche could pick conditions to play any game of football in, that's what he'd have picked. And it played to their, it certainly helped. Played to their strength sort of thing, but we've got to look at ourselves. We were dreadful for pretty much the whole game. No one really seemed up for it, and losing a goal like that in the first minute is very deflating. But we didn't really look like we were up for the game. For me,
Rob adds there's not much communication at the back. Is that McCarthy's problem, or is it sort of a universal problem where we haven't got a leader?
I think Jack Stevens has put his hand up as a leader at the back there. The players were in the right positions. Danny Ings was in the right place. He should have cleared the ball. Ultimately, the goalkeeper has a lot of responsibility for the communication. I don't think we'll be letting in a goal like that again. It's just one of those things that you've got to put down to experience and make sure it doesn't happen again. But I think one way or another, McCarthy will be very disappointed with the goal. And I think I'm not a big one for stats, as you know, but I did see somewhere when they were comparing all the English qualified goalkeepers that he's not, up until that game, he'd not made a mistake that had led to a goal since he got back in the team. So he was probably due one, but hopefully that's the last one for a while.
Well, we did manage to find our way back into the game though. A venomous strike actually from Danny Ings, come a little bit from nothing. It sort of ricocheted about on the edge of the box, and he just fires it past Pope. His 15th goal of the season.
Yeah, brilliant. A player with massive confidence at the moment, and it shows. Tail end of last season, he couldn't buy a goal, and the difference between then and the same player now is ridiculous. He always looks like he is going to score, and he's going to miss a few, same as any striker. But he is the reason we are where we are in the table, and not 18th, 19th. So. It's a brilliant goal. It's a brilliant finish, totally unsavable. And we're looking at the goals we let in and being very critical. Dyche will look at that goal and go, well, there was nothing we could do about that. That was an excellent bit of play by the striker. And sometimes you just got to hold your hands up and say, you can't stop that. So long may Danny Ings continue. And he's got, even if hopefully we get safe and we have a few sort of dead rubber games at the end, he's got the big motivation of the tournament in the summer coming up, and the way he's playing at the moment, it'd be a bit of a scandal if he didn't get chosen. But there you go.
Well, I think the great thing is with Danny Ings this season, we've managed his fitness, and that's partly why he's managed to play almost every single game. Perhaps
Yeah,
not from the start. We've rotated the positions over the sort of festive period where he was sort of benched for the Chelsea game and a couple of the
yeah.
midweek games as well. But again, we are scratching our heads as to why Saints have thrown away, I guess a point. And Saints have failed to mark or close the marker for down from the crossfield ball. And I mean, you can't take much away from the actual strike from Vidra,
No, it's a
which was a
brilliant goal.
match winner.
Yeah, the problem with the goal is the amount of time that Jeff Hendrick had to ping that ball from the wing, and I'm looking at Gineppo and wondering where he was. Hendrick is one of the most limited players you will ever find, but it just shows that if you give any player a whole stack of time, they're going to be able to, pick out a ball like that. And Vidra took it down, Vidra, whatever his name is, took it down, and it was a brilliant finish. People have questioned Walker Peters' role in that, but it's great forward play. Once the ball's got to him, how he's received the ball the way he did and ended up he smashed it in the net at the near post, but there's no way that's McCarthy's fault. He didn't have a prayer of stopping that. It was a brilliant finish. And if you're going to lose, you're going to lose into a goal like that. You've got to hold your hands up and say it's a great goal, but that doesn't take away from the fact that we were dreadful from the moment we scored until the 90th minute, and our most creative player was Jack Stevens. That says it all, really.
Well, a couple of things to add to that, really. Rickster, I saw your comment earlier, by the way, Rickster. We will get to Aston Villa's eyes on Wembley later on, but he adds here, he doesn't think Ward-Prowse dominated the midfield against Burnley. They nullified him with long ball, clever tactics. And as you mentioned about Jack Stevens, in fact, we barely mastered an opportunity in that second half, not even a shot on target. And it's Jack Stevens that sort of, to take the metaphorical bull by the horns, takes an adventurous run forward, takes on half the dozen of the Burnley side, fires the ball across the box, hits Ben Mee's arm. Is it handball or not?
Of course it is. Of course it is. It's I'm a part-time referee, and I got told at the start of the season that the rules for defenders were, if you weren't in the silhouette, the natural silhouette of your body, and your arm was out to the side, but and you gained an advantage by the ball hitting your arm, even if you didn't mean it, it was a penalty. So that's obviously changed, or they're not. They're not applying that. That directive came from the FA to grassroots football. They're obviously not. They've obviously changed that rule, or they're not applying it in the Premier League, because we've had 3 in relatively recent history, which I think should all have been penalties. That's Alderweireld against Tottenham. That was the worst one of the lot. Tanganga against Tottenham in the Cup at home, and now this one. They all should have been given. But referees aren't giving decisions these days, and VAR is backing them up unless it's 1000% wrong. It's annoying, but it went to VAR. I knew they weren't going to give it. Absolutely, 100%, they were not going to give it. And that referee wasn't making any decisions, throughout the game. So he was letting Burnley get away with the rugby tactics, basically. Jack Cork, that tackle on Ward-Prowse was unbelievable. I didn't think too much of it at the time. I thought he must have got a bit of the ball, but when you see that back, it's a yellow borderline red, and Mr. Hooper didn't do anything. It was just unreal refereeing, and again, it's another perfect thing for the Sean Dyche perfect scenario. Have a soft referee, but there you go.
Well, as you say, I think perhaps if Sean Dyche could pick the weather, then he picked the perfect conditions for him. But I think, you sit over in the family stand in St. Mary's. I sit in an itch north where I saw it, right in front of us. It's the first time in a very long time, if not ever, where the entire ground, if not, perhaps even just the Northman and the Itchen North corner, were all up in protests. Stevens goes ballistic to the assistant referee, but it's inconsistencies in the VAR, and it feels like they are backing up the defenders at the moment. But had they gone to VAR, it wouldn't have been overruled because they're sticking with the referee's decision. But the referee, well, let's get to him. I think we've got to say he was sluggish. He looked unfit, overweight. And then guess who's on?
Nothing wrong with being overweight.
Well, not for. I mean, there is if you're a referee, right?
Yeah,
You've got to try and keep up with the player and actually be confident in your own abilities. And as I say, that red card, I didn't see much of it. Well, the red card would have been a red card offence. Jack Cour taking out the back of James Ward-Prowse, not even gone to VAR, no appeal or anything from the Saints team. And goes under the radar during the game too. But guess who's on VAR duties at the weekend?
I didn't know until you sent it to me, but it's Mr. Hooper, isn't it? Well,
Simon Hooper.
This is the problem. I mean, I have to keep saying this. It's not VAR itself. All VAR is technology. It's what we seem to have now is instead of just one layering of incompetence from the referee on the pitch, we've now got two layers of incompetence with the referees looking at VAR, and the situation's worse. And basically the way it's being administered and the way the referees in the little room in Stockley Park are dealing with things at the moment, we are seriously better off without it. And it's a shame because it should have cut out the unfairness that we all feel as fans of Southampton when we play the big clubs. And you feel that, I really hope that there wouldn't be so many wrong decisions. And that's the selling point of VAR, was that it always got the decision right. So even if it took 3 minutes, you got the decision right. But you look at our last 5 games, you've had the Ben Mee, you've had the Son dive, you've had Fabinho's foul on Ings at Anfield, and you've had the Shane Long one as well on their guy, which should have been a penalty against us.
Yeah.
We've had the Tanganga handball, and we've had the Wilfred Zaha pushing Ward-Prowse in the face. That's 5 or 6 incidents in our last 5 games where, in my opinion, VAR has got it wrong. So I know it's only opinion, but there you go. It's not clearing things up at all. But there you go. Going back to that, there's a message come up about the midfield. Usually Ward-Prowse and Højbjerg win the midfield by swarming all over the other team, intercepting passes and stuff like that. But the midfield battle was different on Saturday because it wasn't about that. It was about picking up the long balls that got, picking up the second balls that got pinged up to the forwards and dropped down either off the centre halves or off the forwards. And they weren't doing that. And I was surprised that Romeo didn't come on, because that's kind of his game, to play closer to the centre halves. And we didn't kind of deal with that for the whole of the second half, and that was part of the problem. That's one of the things I noticed, is that the ball kept dropping in between the centre halves and our midfielders, and they kept picking it up. And to be fair to Burnley, they do try. They don't play any football anywhere near their own goal, but once they get to within sort of 40 yards of our goal, if they get the ball down, they do try and play through players like McNeil and Rodriguez. But we just didn't deal with it. We just didn't deal with them the whole game.
So how much of the match program do you read?
None.
So
I haven't bought one for about 15 years, I don't think.
So here's the thing. Apparently, Sean Dyche was reading the program before the game and used the program to fuel his team talk. Stephen adds, what do you think of the comments Sean Dyche admitted some of the disparaging comments in the program gave his side extra fuel to beat the Saints? Apparently, the tactical analysis said that we need to target Burnley's left back, Charlie Taylor, and Burnley are a long ball side.
Well, Burnley are a long ball side, but I think it's a talking point, but I don't believe it made Burnley play any differently to how they ever played, and I don't think anyone would have been any more angry going onto the pitch as a result of that. I think it's just one of the things managers say as a sort of like a little vox pop thing, makes it slightly interesting. But no, I don't hold too much in that. But having said that, I don't really see why we need to sort of like publish things like that. I mean, I don't know how many programs get sold or how many of our fans sort of read them these days. I mean, even when I used to buy them, it was more of a keepsake thing, and it was just, they bunged in a drawer, and I might have read a couple of pages of it, but not much. So
my
I think he's making a bit too much of that.
My stack of my programs is growing, but I've stopped collecting them recently, actually, because most of the articles that are in and printed in the program are readily available online on the Southampton website, either a day before the game. Right? Let's get to Aston Villa then. Firstly, a quick couple of comments on VAR. Rickster added, NFL rarely gets it wrong. I've been to a match in the US and decisions are done in less than a minute. Abdub adds the referee should go to the screen. And
Yes,
here's one as
definitely
well.
should.
Jadam says, Glen's brilliant.
I know Jadams is. He's one of my son's mates.
Brilliant. Hello, Jadams. Good evening to you. Right, let's get to Aston Villa then. So it's the worst, the worst defensive side, averaging less than sort of 2 goals conceded per game. And they've had their fair share of defensive errors this season too. The goal that they conceded in the 93rd minute against Tottenham, that was an error coming from one of their centre backs too.
Yeah, they're not great, and I think it's a good game for us to have, because I don't think, we struggled against Burnley. It's another one where we struggled because they defended deep. And we haven't got a clue how to attack against teams that defend deep. Shane Long never plays well when there's no space. But I don't think Villa are capable of shutting up shop. They struggle to score themselves, so they have to commit players forward in order to have a chance of scoring. So I'm hoping, I think it should be an open-ish kind of game. And it's a bit like the away game out there. I think it should suit us, and we should have a better chance of winning this one than we had last Saturday.
So just going back to Rickster's comment earlier on in the show, I think it's fair to say Aston Villa have got one eye on Wembley next weekend in the League Cup final against Manchester City. Do you think they'll be resting players ahead of it, or do you think they'll be playing their full strength side with the likes of Jack Grealish? Tyrone Mings is apparently meant to be back for the weekend too. So what do we do to stop those, or what should be our counteract to it?
Well, I don't think, I'd be very surprised in this day and age of where staying in the Premier League is worth so much money if they rest any players. Why did Mings miss the game against Spurs? Was he injured, or was he suspended, or what?
I think he had an illness.
So it's not like he's getting over an injury. I mean, if he was getting over an injury, they might not risk him against us to keep him ready for the final. But I imagine if he was just had a cold or whatever, then he'll be 100% fit to play against us. Grealish is one that we have to watch. He is the closest thing to a one-man team in the Premier League at the moment. He's a very, very good player. He's better than all the players who are similar, who are getting called up for England, like Ali, Maddison, Mount, even Jesse Lingard. He's better than all of them. He honestly is better than all of them. And he's another one that I think will or should definitely be in the England squad in the summer. Very good player, and he's the main one we have to watch. I haven't seen too much of the new striker they've got, Samatta.
Yeah.
I don't think he scored. He might have scored.
He might have scored. Weekend.
Yeah, so I don't know too much about him. But
or the weekend before, in fact, at Bournemouth.
Yeah, it's certainly a game that we should be looking to stamp our mark on and win.
Yeah, well, hopefully that is our tactics to actually stamp on his feet. And Grealish, I think, has drawn the most amount of fouls in the Premier League this season. I think Grealish, it's fair to say, he's their version of Matt Letizia.
Yeah, Matt had some pretty dodgy haircuts back in the day as well. Yeah. But I mean, Grealish, you come out looking like that, you're going to get kicked no matter how you play. So it's a bit like Todd Cantwell at Norwich. You turn up with long blonde hair and an Alice band, you're going to get kicked, and deservedly so. Now, joking aside, yeah, Grealish does draw fouls because he holds the ball. He holds onto the ball very well, and he only seems to pass it when there's no other options. But I've been very, very impressed with him, and fair enough. When he played before they got relegated, he played a couple of games. I saw him play a couple of times against us, and he just looked like this stroppy little kid who wasn't going to amount to much. But a season in the Championship and staying with the club has actually done him the world of good. And a few players who left us too quickly could probably have learnt from that example. And if he moves in the summer, if they go down or even if they don't, he's going to be up near 100 million quid, isn't he? So yeah. He's definitely developed into a very, very good player.
Yeah, well, it's a huge game for Villa. Rob adds that the fans from Aston Villa are fancying this one at the weekend. You know,
Yeah, they fancied the home game against us and all, and they didn't win that. So
big game for us too, but you know, just as I guess bigger for Aston Villa. Winning, it's 10 points clear for us of West Ham, and I guess 9 points from Aston Villa, who occupy the 17th right now. Watford have tough games at the weekend. Lose to Villa, only 3 points from us, and we're back in the relegation fight that John adds.
John's obviously sits up all night worrying about it. You need to calm down, mate, and just go to bed. You know, just don't worry about it too much. Whatever will be. But yeah, I know I get your point. I totally get your point. It is a big game, and the sooner we win a couple more games and get ourselves to 36, 37, then we can start relaxing a little bit.
I think 36 is going to be too little this season.
Yeah.
Mark
Could well do.
Mark adds, Ralph will have the lads fired up this week. He seemed pretty angry last week. Right, I've got lots of comments flying in now. Then I will drink more beer. Then Glen,
Good man.
from John. Hang on, too many comments now. Here we go. Abdub, do you think we're finishing the top 10? So I think
No.
I think it's possible. You know,
it is possible, but no.
Although,
I don't think we will.
Although you mentioned in your blog, somebody was talking of fantasy of qualifying for Champions League behind you in the stands last weekend.
Yeah, he's an idiot. It's a well-known idiot that I spend the whole game trying to ignore usually. And I came in and I could hear him waffling on about Man City getting banned and all that stuff. And it opens up 5th place. I'm thinking, Jesus, I'd settle for 15th to be perfectly honest. But there you go. So yeah, there was a little bit of talk of that. But we have to, we can maybe look up the league again once we've won another game. But you've got to remember we've lost 3 out of the last 4 or something. So we need to get back on the right road again.
Well, it's 3 out of the last 4 and 8 at home this season. If we lose this weekend, it equals a club record of 9 defeats in the season at home. And at the moment in the form tables, it's Aston Villa that are the second worst away side with 8 points, and Saints are rock bottom of the home form with 11 points.
Should be a classic then.
So it's got 0-0 written all over it, right?
No, because neither team can defend particularly well. So I actually think it's going to be quite an entertaining game. But yeah, well, we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, well, we need to calm the nerves, as Rob suggests. Right.
Yeah, I don't think there's massive sort of like nerves at the moment. We're still in a decent position in the table, but if we do get beat by Villa, then it starts to look a bit squeaky again, doesn't it?
And what's it? 12 games to play at that point, is it? I think 26 now at the moment. 12 games left. I think 40 points has got to be a minimum expectation because it's so tight down there, and I guess between sort of 10th down to 18th, and anybody puts a couple of wins together could be seeing themselves a little bit comfortable from the drop.
Yeah. Well, I thought Bournemouth were dead and buried a few weeks ago, and they won a couple of home games and moved up the table. I mean, I still think they're severely struggling. Norwich are going to go down, obviously. I'm looking at 2 out of Bournemouth, Brighton, and West Ham.
Watford, maybe.
Watford seem to have had the new manager bounce, and now they're going back to sort of like not what they were before, but they seem to have settled down a little bit now. So all 5 of those sides at the moment, I think we're better than them, but it all depends. We've got a very thin squad. And if we've got a couple of injuries now, which we're just about covering. But if we get if that Ward-Prowse injury had turned out to be worse than the one he got up at Spurs, then that would have been a big hole. And Redmond's absence is going to be a big hole, especially if Gineppo doesn't step up. So it's always fragile, and it can always go very wrong if we're a little bit unfortunate.
Well, one player who loves playing against Aston Villa, and Piers adds, what do you think of Shane Long's form? Here's a statistic for all you folks at home. Shane Long's been directly involved in 10 goals in the last 7 starts against Aston Villa. But unfortunately for him, he's already used up his goal allocation for this month.
Well, one. Well, Shane Long's been excellent since he's got back in the side. We're playing with two up top, which suits him because it means he doesn't have to carry the goal scoring burden. And Danny Ings likes playing with him, so happy days. The question I've always got against Shane Long is when we play teams like Burnley who defend on the edge of the penalty area. Shane hasn't got the sort of like the clever movement or the real physicality to play against big brute centre halves and hold the ball up and do the sort of things that Ricky Lambert and Graziano Pelle used to do. So he always struggles against deep line defences, and as a result, we struggle. I do wish that for games like that we still had a target man centre forward, and that's part of the problem, I think, why we struggle to win home games.
Well, perfectly brings us to Dave's comment here. Why are we so bad at home? Now, this is actually starting to divide a lot of the fan base at the moment.
Yeah.
The Itchen North corner is trying to build a bit of momentum, but they've gone a bit quiet recently. Then you've got people coming over from Northern to the Itchen to try and make it the same sort of singing section as well. Ralph's also been in the press today, in fact, says that he's urged St Mary's to become a fortress and urged every fan to give us a voice. So how do we fortress St Mary's?
Well, Ralph, who is our manager, who is paid about £6 million a year, needs to justify that £6 million a year and come up with a way that we can play decent football against teams like Burnley who sit back and just let us attack. We are a very good counter-attacking side, hence our away form. When we play away from home, the opposition usually defend on the halfway line. They push right up. Long, Ings, Redmond, it's tailor-made for them, and that's why we do so well away from home. At home, it's not the same. We don't have the playmaker to spread the ball through the eye of a needle. We don't have the battering ram centre forward to go over these defences. So, Ralph and the coaching staff need to find a way to give us confidence that we can win games against teams like that. So, with regards to the singing and I wouldn't say he's blaming the fans, but it's the tail wagging the dog. If you look at the fans respond to what goes on the pitch, and everyone starts the game in a good mood and everyone starts the game up for it, and then you let in a goal after 40 seconds or whatever it is, and that kind of, here we go again. And we've been so bad at home for so long.
Yeah.
How long ago was Claude Puel's season? 4 years ago now?
3 years ago, yeah.
3.5 years ago, whatever it is. We've been bad for 3.5 years at home. Apart from the little section when Ralph initially came in, we've been pretty dreadful at home for that whole time, which coincided, just to labour my point yet again, when we stopped having a target man centre forward, who we could play the ball up to if nothing else was on. And the other reason is that so in order for us to play well at home, we have to flood men forward, and our defence isn't good enough to keep the back door shut.
But I would argue it works both ways, really, isn't it? I think that the players need a bit of inspiration from the fans to remain vocal.
Yes and no. I know players always say that you can really hear the fans and it gets you going and stuff like that, and I do understand that, but that shouldn't be the primary driver. These guys are paid a fortune. They train all week. They've got a manager there who's paid a fortune. They've got coaching staff who are probably paid a fortune. They should be able to turn up for a game and look like they know what they're doing. And in a lot of games this season, we have turned up and looked like we've known what we're doing. And in a lot of games, we haven't. And the common factor, especially at home, is that the teams that sit in, who have we beaten at home? We've beaten Norwich, who were absolutely crap, and Watford, who were in an absolute wilderness. Is it 3? Then Tottenham. Tottenham was the best win of the season, obviously. We played well in that game. But, I think Ralph was maybe engaging in a little bit of deflection there. He has to look at himself and try and sort out how we can get over this problem.
I think because we've had such turgid football over the last sort of 3 years or so, we almost feel like we need to push the reset button in kind of the default mechanism for sitting at home watching Saints, rather than the default being, oh, you rubbish Saints, you're crap this, you're crap that sort of thing. So I think next season we should target home form, focusing on attractive football, playing good football, and I guess encouraging fans to come to St Mary's. But I guess at the end of the day, it's also an entertainment. Although I hate that sort of phrase.
I
So
think
if you're not being
I think
entertained, then
yeah,
you're
I
not.
think at home, I think the way things have been the last 3.5 years, I think people would almost put up with a little bit of winning 1-0 and playing dreadfully. I think people would put up with that certainly for a short period of time. But we just look clueless sometimes. And I mean that game, go back to the Burnley game, which I know we've done it, but what do we have? 2 shots?
Yeah.
2 shots against pretty limited opposition with a pretty limited game plan. The players don't seem to think on their feet. Maybe that comes down to leadership. Maybe not. Maybe we've only got a plan A. That certainly seems to be the way. I mean, seriously, I'd have been tempted to lob Vestergaard up front because it would have got him out of the defence, and at least we could have sent the ball in the box. Try something different. We just didn't. I know he tried to change the formation, but I mean, did anyone seriously think Obafemi and Adams were going to do anything when they came on? I didn't. Why not shove the big guy up front for the last 5 minutes and just see what happens? We just didn't seem to do anything, and it was only Jack Stevens who wanted to try something a little bit different, to try and get us back into that game.
Right. Okay. Then. So before we give us score predictions, then KN adds had to do a double take. I thought Glen was hugging Hooper there for a second. I
love some of the money, mate. Yeah, keep the beard. Yeah. The beard, it's a bit grey, isn't it? But there you go. I couldn't believe how old it looked when it came on. But there you go. Such is life. Yeah, keep the beard for a bit.
Right.
Keep the beard till we win at home.
Oh, okay. Right. It's well, hopefully you'll be shaving on Sunday then.
2025. Yeah.
Okay, let's give some score prediction and to sign off. If you're still there in the comments, fire through some score predictions. I did see some earlier on, actually. Let's get to those if I can find them once again. Where are you? I think there was a couple of 2-1s, but lead the way then, Glen. What do you think will happen?
I'm going to go 2-0. I'm going to go 2-0 to us. Danny Sundo, go away. Horrible person.
2-1.
I'm going to go 2-0 for us. I think as much as our games are ever comfortable, I think this might be one that is, I think the way they play suits us, and I think we'll win. I think we'll win 2-0.
Rob, I think there's going to be a few more goals in it. Result 3-1, like it was in December, and I think a complete performance in December. We pounced on their defensive errors. A fantastic hit by Danny Ings. Oliver adds 2-1 as well. Dave thinks it's going to be a Desmond.
Yeah. All these are reasonable shouts. Apart from that guy, I thought we'd lose, but yeah.
Personally, I think it'd be Aston Villa will concede twice as many as we will. Aston Villa will concede twice as many as they'll score. Let's go with that.
You've been drinking?
No, there's just been water this evening. So let's just say it'll be 2-1 or 4-2 Saints. That's my prediction. Yeah.
God, wouldn't that be nice? Nice, entertaining game like that.
I think Dave has got the bottom line here. I just wants to see us winning at home.
But just cannot see us winning at home.
Oh, cannot. I must have been drinking. Jesus. Jadams 3-1 with Shane Long, Ings with 2, and Chris 2-0 to us. There you go. Chris agrees with you, Glen.
Any of these will do. Any
other above apart from Danny's comment. Right. Okay. Great stuff. I think we'll wrap it up there then for this week's match build-up show. Great stuff. Just remind us where we can catch up with blog. Very irrelevant, maybe sometimes.
Irrelevant. Totally irrelevant. Totally irrelevant. You were right the first time. If you just Google League One -10, it will take you to where you need to go if you want to read any of the drivel that comes out of my fingers on a keyboard after the game. I try and write it directly. I try and write most of it directly after the game, so it is a little bit unfiltered, and some of the opinion does change as the week goes on. But there you go. It is what it is, and yeah. And if you really fancy it, you can look back through the last. I think this is the 11th season I've done it now, so it's been every game for the last 11 seasons. So if you want to have a look at anything historical, then yeah, there's a good place to see what I made of it all at the time.
Right, great stuff. Right, thanks for joining us, Glenn, and thank you all in the comments. We'll catch up after the game on Saturday.
Thanks for having me on, and I'll see you all soon. Cheers.